In this video, I'm going to show you 5 of my favorite lighting techniques when it comes to wedding receptions. Hello, my friends. My name is Pye. Welcome to another MagMod tutorial. Now, when I was first getting into wedding photography, one of the most challenging things is just how do you light the wedding reception? There are so many different types of environments and scenes and challenges, and things happen so quick that it's just difficult. So in this tutorial, I want to break down and give you just 5 of my favorite lighting techniques when it comes to wedding receptions. I'm going to show you the gear, how to set it up. I'm going to show you the results, all of it. So let's get started with number 1. You're outdoors or you're in a dark environment where there's nothing to bounce light off of. What do you do in these moments? Okay. So the first thing that we would probably think to do is kind of just get our flash onto the camera and go with direct flash. Now, direct flash works, but it's not really ideal. It creates pretty harsh shadows, really harsh lighting. It's just not very flattering when it comes to photographing people. So instead, here's what you're gonna do. Step 1, dial in your ambient light into camera. A good place to start is 1/160th of a second, f2.8, and ISO 3200, maybe even higher. But what you wanna do is you want to make sure that you're capturing some ambient light like you see in this image. Now this was actually extremely dark, so we had to go up to 6400 ISO, but again, most cameras these days, they can handle 3200, 6400, you still get great results, especially when you expose correctly in camera. But the key here is that you want to see some of that environmental light. You don't want it to be dark in your frame and just rely solely on the flash to light the entire scene, because you lose the kind of ambiance of that scene, right? I like that word. Anyway, step 2, you're gonna flip the flash up and you're gonna grab your mag bounce and use this to basically bounce light forward. Now what's gonna happen with this is it's gonna allow some of that light to go up and kind of bounce around the room, but it's gonna funnel most of it forward, and it gives you a much larger area than just that direct flash. So let me show you the results. Using the mag bounce, well, this is just ambient light with no flash, right? Outdoors with just mag bounce, this is the result, and it looks so much better than just direct flash. It's actually quite a bit softer, it's a little bit more diffused, all of it. But one of the other things that I like to do too is this environment. So in this scene, we're working this wedding where they have this tapestry that's kind of just painted blue with light. So my worry is that if I'm just bouncing in this room, I'm gonna get a lot of blue light back. So I need to push some light forward. So I use the mag bounce in this case, and say on the dance floor when someone is, well, this is our performer, and actually I think this guy's pretty famous, but when I'm lighting him, you get some of that light pushed forward and it kind of cleans up the face, and I also still get some bounce as well. So it's a really nice in-between. We get a bit of bounce, we get a lot of light pushed forward, and we get a much larger light source than just direct flash. Technique number 2, I want you to get comfortable using directional light when it comes to speeches, toasts, performances at the reception. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So what we would typically do is we would go into a reception room, and let's say that we have a ceiling to bounce off of. We'd probably just grab our flash and maybe we throw on a CTO gel to kind of correct for the light. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in a second, right? And maybe we even use like a mag sphere or a mag bounce on top. So this is the sphere. And we start shooting and bouncing light just off the ceiling, and we get pretty decent stuff. We get stuff like this, where most of the light in the scene is kind of being bounced around and kind of coming from directly on our camera. Now, the problem with this though, is that you notice it kind of washes the scene out of its natural color, right? Like we see this uplighting, but we don't really see any of it because we've filled the scene with flash. And then we have like kind of more direct flash, which creates nasty shadows, and it also washes out the ambient light. So what I'm going to show you is going to take you from stuff like this to images like this, where not only can you shoot and move around freely, you also get much more dynamic images. You get images that actually capture the scene and all the ambient light within that scene. So how do you set it up? Okay, so we need an off-camera flash, right? We're going to go ahead and place that onto the mag shoe. This is a cold shoe adapter, and you're going to put this onto whatever stand you like. I like to use the Manfrotto Nano stands. They're great, they're small, and they're very light and portable. The magic in this is going to be placement, but it's also going to be light control, which means that you need a grid. So this is the Mag Grid 2. We're going to pop this right onto the top, and now we're basically good to go. Now I'm going to show you the setup. So if we're looking top down on a dance floor, and let's say that we have our subjects kind of right in the center, maybe like in front of where the bride and groom are sitting, right? What I like to do is light from one of the corners of the dance floor. And then what I'll actually do is shoot from the opposite side of them. So I'm not going to shoot with that flash because then it's going to look like direct flash, right? I'm actually going to shoot from the shadow side. Let me give you some examples. In this shot that you saw, my flash is placed to the right, it's lighting him, and because it has that grid, it's not spilling onto the entire scene, which means I maintain the ambience of the scene. I'm shooting through the crowd right now to kind of illustrate what it looks like from everybody else who's watching this person give the toast. This is another example. So these are performances, right? So I have my flash placed right here again on the corner of the dance floor on the right side, lighting this group. And if you'd like, you can even use more than one flash. But what I'd recommend is gridding each one because I don't want that light spilling everywhere into the scene. I want it controlled and just on my subjects. Again, this allows me to shoot wide if I'd like, or I'm going to show you a full scene right here. Check this out. So this is an entire scene up on this is an outdoor deck on a carrier actually in San Diego. So we're on this carrier and we have our whole wedding set up here. So there's nothing to bounce off of, right? I've got one light placed right here. So it's actually right next to or right behind the video light and it's lighting her up. And I've got another flash placed right here, which is creating that rim light. So if you zoom in, you can see the exact setup. And I'm shooting from the shadow side, right? From the darker side. Now what happens with this is we get this beautiful spotlight effect and I can move around and shoot. So I can zoom in and I can get the same lighting. I can move to a different angle when other people come up to give toasts. I can go in closer, I can go in wider. When it's time for performance, here's that same flash, the one that's placed in the corner, not our bro right here, but the one that's placed in the corner that's lighting the entire group. And this, by the way, is the video light. So sometimes you can't control where the cinema team is putting their lights. But anyway, so we have this lighting the entire group and I get a backlight, but also I get that main light and it looks absolutely beautiful. I can move around, I can shoot. This is from the bride and groom's perspective of this dance through like their decor and detail. I can get things that aren't just that front and center shot where I would need to be there with on-camera flash right in the middle, getting the same exact shots that look washed out, that look like stuff like this, right? So I can get a very different look by just simply using directional light. So remember for that, your best friend is going to be the MagGrid 2 along with a gel. And we're going to talk about that more right now. So when you want to correct color, we're going to be using the Mag gels. And let me show you what that looks like. So early in my career, I started to recognize that when you get to scenes like this, where there's a lot of orange and warmth naturally in the scene, if you're not using a warm light, so if you're using just regular flash, it becomes kind of difficult to match color in post. You end up with kind of muddy orange tones, right? Now for this one, I was actually using a hot light that was pretty close to this kind of ambient light, but you'll still see what I mean. When you look at the scene, the background ends up being too orange. Like if I'm using just regular bare bulb flash, my background's gonna end up being really orange while the main light is gonna be very blue. So to fix it in post, I'd have to sit here and kind of adjust my temperature and then go into the HSL and do all that. But in this example right here, I actually gelled just to match the ambient room light. So I have just the CTO gel here. So this is the MagMod full CTO, and this is the MagMod half CTO. Okay, so if it's kind of orange, then you use the half. If it's really orange, then use the full. Either way though, you're gonna place this right onto your on-camera flash, and then you're gonna dial your in-camera white balance to around 36 to 3800 Kelvin. In this scene, I'm using a CTO gel to match the ambient room light. So what happens is if I press W inside of Lightroom Classic and click on anything that's kind of neutral, it gets me to a really nice white balance. It's very neutral. You notice the colors, they're not really muddy or mixed. Everything matches. All I gotta do is figure out the right white balance and I'll apply, say, my preset like modern, and boom, add a little bit of contrast and I'm done. Compared to trying to fix this in post, it's much easier just to gel and get the light setup right. I'm gonna give you another little idea right here. One of my favorite setups is just this. So I'll walk into a room, and if we're working in a room like this where I have good bounce, I'm gonna go ahead and place the flash onto my camera. I'm gonna grab the appropriate CTO gel. So this is the full CTO, and I'm gonna grab the Mag sphere. This is kind of my go-to bouncing setup. So I'll actually use this, and what's gonna happen with the sphere is it lets most of the light travel up and bounce. It's gonna push out some of the light kind of towards our subject as well. So with this, I can very much get close to kind of softbox light look with just that. And same thing here, I'm bouncing off the ceiling as well as using the MagSphere. You get a really great look, very simple, and it works incredibly well. So this is my go-to when I step into a room that's kind of bright walls, it's light, it's neutral colored, something that I can bounce light off of. Technique number 4, let's go ahead and get this flash off camera one more time. So again, I'm gonna attach with the mag shoe, and this is my backlighting setup. So the key to a backlighting setup is gonna be, again, you want your gel to kind of get, well, it can be stylistic, it can also be color matching, right? But usually when I backlight, I'm gonna use either a half or a full CTO because I like my backlights to be warm. The other magic in this is gonna be either the grid or the sphere. And each of them are gonna do something a bit different, which I'm gonna show you. So with this backlighting setup, if you want the light to kind of wrap around your subjects, then take the grid off and instead add a sphere. And what you're gonna do is place it directly behind your subjects. And I usually like to kind of point it up, or maybe if they're wearing white, I'll point it towards the white. But you'll see in this scene, and this actually links to another MagMod tutorial that we did, this is in a parking lot. So you can do this technique virtually anywhere and get absolutely wonderful results. But this is that light wrapping technique where the light kind of wraps around the face and creates like this beautiful glow. But if you don't want the light to wrap, if you just want the light to backlight like we have here, then what I'm gonna do is take the sphere off, and again, light control is the name of the game. We pop the grid on, and this go around, I'm placing light facing them, but it's behind them, maybe 5 to 10 feet. So it's kind of like around where this pile of flowers is, sort of behind them. And what the grid's gonna do is prevent that light from spilling and just killing the entire scene. It's gonna push the light forward. We get a bit of warmth at it, so we get this beautiful shot where we can retain the ambient light of a scene and really get dynamic images, but with that backlight that draws attention in. So I use this all the time when it comes to receptions for getting my backlight in on my couple, getting that wrapping light look, all of it. This is a go-to. Last but not least, let's talk dance floor. So my favorite technique for lighting the dance floor, I call the Statue of Liberty, because you kind of look like that when you're shooting. So look, we have a couple different variations of this setup, and I'm gonna show you the results for each. First, I'm gonna start with this one. This setup, why is it called the Statue of Liberty? Well, because you're gonna take the mag shoe off the stand and you're actually gonna hold it, but essentially you are shooting with one hand on your camera and you're shooting with the other hand like this, and you're holding it up high and aiming it towards your subjects. And because, yeah, it looks like this, you're, Statue of Liberty. So the setup for this is, there's some variations depending on the look that you want, right? But you're gonna color match first. In this case, so in this particular image, I'm actually just using the mag sphere. So the mag sphere is gonna kind of push light everywhere. So you get a little bit of a highlight on your subject, which you can control with your zoom on your flash as well. But you also get a lot of light that's going to kind of go around the scene. So we get kind of everybody that's around our bride here sort of lit, and it looks really nice. But if you want, you can funnel that light a bit more. So this setup is taking the sphere off and replacing it actually with the grid, then putting the sphere back on. So what we do is now we have it pointed at our subjects. We get most of the light on our subjects. We get a little bit of light kind of going around everybody else because the grid is going to funnel that light forward. And again, this is the same effect here, only without the sphere. So if I want all the light just on my subjects, I'm going to take the sphere off and I'm going to use the grid. One little trick here, and as you're getting used to this technique, I would say you might want to do this, but once you're used to it, you really don't need to. One little trick is to use the modern light. So a lot of modern flashes have this modern light built into the camera. The only thing that I don't like about it is once you're used to the technique, I turn it off, because on the dance floor, when someone like shines this in your face, it's very noticeable, especially in a dark environment. So it kind of gets their attention in a way that, like, I don't know, it kind of bothers me. Sometimes they stop, they look into the camera, they pose for a picture, and I'm like, I don't want that. So getting used to this though, this will help you to kind of get the angle. You just need a little bit of practice until it becomes muscle memory. Like within one reception, you will get this down, and then I'll turn off my, turn off the light so you're not bugging people. But that's also the same technique that I used here as well. Now here, I'm using it with the sphere. So you can kind of see when the light is opening up more, then that's kind of the sphere. But I love it for situations like this, because in scenes like this where both people get lifted up, right? I need to be able to get my camera and my light source up really high. So I'm actually lifting everything up. And I think in this instance, I'm not only lifting, I actually stood up on the stage as well. So the Statue of Liberty lets you get the camera and the light away from your body, which gives you extra height. It's a really fantastic way of lighting the dance floor, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite way. So I hope this was useful and beneficial to each of you. If you guys enjoyed, as always, let me know in the comments. I read every one of your comments and I do my best to reply as well. The MagMod team is watching too. And we're also going to link up all the gear that we used in this video in the description. So check out the description or the show notes where you can see all the gear that we use and get links to everything. And that's it for me. Enjoy, and we'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Peace.